following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. This is Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I have 3 out of the 4 Fab Fours with me tonight. Kind of reminiscing. David Hubler is on his way.
I'm here.
Blumkin is here. Oh, good.
Hi,
Alan
David.
Blumkin
Hi.
is here too, and Hal Bock is here. When I say 3 out of 4, the 4th one is George Case. He's missed tonight. He was absent, and I'm going to have his mom sign the paper before we can let him back in. David, Alan, and Hal. I want, in no particular order, you guys choose it, what you're thinking of the playoffs, and are you happy or sad Dusty is going against the other Robbie Thompson?
I'll
make
start.
It easy on you. Okay.
I'll start. Okay, I'm neither happy nor sad. I've given up getting upset by games a couple of years ago. Yeah, if a team I root for loses, I let it bother me for about 5 minutes. Yeah, I figure I'm just too old for let this to control me. Anyway, I have one reason why the Dodgers lost to San Diego, and that is the curse of Joey Gallo.
Okay.
Curse of Joey Gallo.
Yeah.
All right.
A friend of mine and I have established 160 batting average as the Gallo line.
Good. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, and he struck out 40% of the times of his plate appearances. And it's just absolutely terrible. And why the Dodgers thought that this guy could play is beyond me. About the Yankees, I mean, first of all, they were missing LeMahieu and Benintendi. Their lineup was very, very flawed. And they made each game against Houston, they made defensive miscues, which especially when they botched that double play up Sunday night, that basically cost them the game. They couldn't hit, and Houston, to me, is a much better team than the Yankees are. So that didn't bother me. That didn't surprise me at all that they lost. And with the National League, was I surprised by the Phillies getting as far as they have? I say, yeah, sure. I don't think anybody was expecting that.
Especially
let me pick it up.
Okay, sure.
But first of all, regarding the Yankees, I really believe, first of all, I believe that the Astros are a better team. That's number one. Number two is I think the Astros are in the Yankees' heads. I think the Yankees are distracted by them, and it hurts them on the field. It hurts them in the games. Also, of course, it would have helped if they'd hit a little, if they didn't strike out 30 times in the first 2 games. I mean, that was embarrassing. So that's why the Yankees lost, in my opinion. More to the point of the playoffs is we lost 4 teams that had over 100 wins or close to 100 wins. That's unbelievable. The Mets won 101 games, the Braves won 101 games, the Dodgers won 111 games, and the Yankees won 99 games. And none of them is playing in the World Series. Instead, we have a team, the Phillies, who won, 86 or 87 games, something like that. That's very weird to me. How do you explain that? Is that a good system that allows a team like that to be in the ultimate series? I don't know.
Well, Hal, in 1973, the Mets won 82 games and wound up in the World Series.
That's true. You're right. About that.
In 1987, the Twins won 85 games and wound up in the World Series. They wound up winning it because they were unbeatable in Minnesota, and they had the home field advantage because in those days, the leagues alternated.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment about that National League Phillies pennant-winning team. I have a friend who's very much into statistics and is a lifelong Dodgers fan, and he pointed out that the Padres finished 22 games behind the Dodgers, and the Phillies, with their record, would be 24 games behind the Dodgers. The Phillies' record against teams playing at 500 or better was 34-47. The Dodgers, on the other hand, were 50-27 against 500 teams. So he says, why bother playing the regular season?
Well, I mean, you play who's on the schedule ahead of you, in front of you.
I know. He was just grousing, sour. I know how he feels. I mean,
wait till these geniuses add 2 more teams, make it 32, and have 8 4-team divisions like football.
You can't, as much as I dislike the way the NFL has taken over MLB, you can't knock success.
No.
They know what the hell they're doing.
But baseball will have 8 4-team divisions, and there'll be 16 teams in the playoffs, and they'll go into December, and they'll wind up playing the World Series at some more
here's
weather.
What you can do. Here's what you can do. You can have 4 divisions, or 8 divisions. 8 divisions, 4 teams in each division. Is that what you want?
No, that's what I'm not. No, I despise the thought of that. But that's what these idiots, if they ever decide to go to 32 teams, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to have 4 8-team leagues.
What would happen? Would the Earth stop turning on its axis if we eliminated wild cards? If we just had winners, you have to finish in first place.
No, I mean, I went crazy when they put the wild card in 1994.
That's what I'm saying.
They split it into 3 divisions.
That's what I'm saying.
You're rewarding a team for losing.
Get rid of the wild card.
But they'll never do that. They will never do that.
I know they won't. But I mean, in a perfect world, that's part of the solution. Get rid of the wild card. I mean, I just despise the fact that you had 400-win teams, if you count the Yankees, who are on their backs, on their butts, and playing golf now. I mean, and here's another question for you. Now, everybody knows that Ralph and I are Met fans, and that's a lifelong aggravation that we have.
That's a disease that no cure.
All right, the Mets blew the Eastern Division, the National League Eastern Division, by losing 3 games in a row to the hated Braves at the end of the season. They could have won it if they'd won 1 more game along the way, but they never did. But okay, that's fine. What they wound up doing is playing in the wild card, and the Braves had a week off. Now, you could argue that week off gave the Braves time to take a deep breath and to reset their roster and to get everybody rested and so forth. But you could also argue that they lost their verve, they lost their drive by having no games for a week. And maybe the bye, by getting the bye, that hurt them more than it helped them.
They're probably the same thing with the Dodgers also.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that argument too. The Mets just went south on us. They're important pitchers. They're important three important starters, and all 3 of them were terrible in the postseason. Not in the postseason, but in the end of the season.
Well, what did Joe Torre say about the playoffs, David Hubler? What?
We want to win them all? I don't know.
He said his famous quote, where once you get to the playoffs, it's all a crapshoot.
Well, that's very true. This season proved it.
That's my argument. That reduces the importance of the regular season, and you win 100 games, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's like basketball and hockey. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. The important games to win are the games in the postseason.
Yeah.
And the Phillies have proven that. I mean, I thought the Cardinals were going to be a threat to them, and they weren't. And I certainly thought the Braves would be a threat to them, and they weren't. And I certainly thought that the Padres, after they beat the Mets, would be a threat, and they weren't. So if you get hot at the right time, you can be the world champions. And I don't know if that's a good thing. What about the regular season? Why do we bother winning 100 games?
Well,
the suits are in it for the money. That's the bottom line. The more teams that have fan interest all the way through the season are the teams that are going to make the most money. And that's what they're after. That's why they keep adding teams to the playoffs. I mean, it's just so transparent that you can't help but almost laugh.
You're 100% right. That's why Alan's theory, I think, is correct, that they'll add 2 more teams to have 32, and it's an even number. It'll make it easier for them to have a divided playoff, an evenly divided playoff. But it's just reducing the quality of play as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they said that about the NHL too when they went from 6 teams on up. But you're right in one sense. It's diluting the game, but it's giving more attention to potential fans, and that's what they're after. I mean, that's all it amounts to. The Yankees folded this year. The Yankees folded in August, right after the All-Star game. They began a downward stretch. They were not the same team that they were in the first half. And, I don't know what they're planning to do. I know they don't like to lose. The front office especially doesn't like to lose. And so we'll see. But look, next year, the bases are going to be bigger, and they're going to have another time clock in there. They're fooling around with the game so much that they're losing fans like you and me. I mean,
you're right. You're right. The rule change that I really think is ridiculous is this pick-off move. The pitcher is allowed to throw over to first base twice, and if he throws over a third time, he better get the guy out. If he doesn't get him out, it's a balk. So to me, that's a running start. That's a running start for base stealers. Yeah. Bring back Maury Wills. Where is Ricky Henderson when we need him, Yeah. I mean, it's a joke.
That's cool.
Another thing I love is when they start talking about postseason records. Every time they mention that, I wince.
Yeah.
What do you mean postseason records?
Postseason, it's like the World Series is separate. If I remember, Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle and Henry Aaron never played. Oh, Mays did, but Mickey Mantle never played in Musial Williams. They never played in LDSs or LCSs.
No, not at all.
Well, that's just another thing to develop fan interest when there really isn't anything to be interested in.
And I have a close friend of mine that had Yankee tickets. He was there when they had that 2.5-hour rain delay before they postponed the game with the Guardians. And then he was there Sunday night when they delayed the game for an hour and a half. He said that I called him yesterday, and he said that it was chilly and windy there, and chilly and rainy there. So that the only thing they care about, as far as fans are concerned, is that the fans keep spending the money, paying the exorbitant prices, paying the exorbitant parking, the concessions, and the souvenirs and all of that. As long as that keeps coming in, they feel the MLB feels they can do anything to the fans, and the fans will just accept it.
I saw something today online. I couldn't believe it. If you wanted to buy 2 standing room only seats at the Phillies games, at whatever the name of the ballpark is these days, 2 standing room only seats would be over $1,000 each. Over $1,000 to stand? No, thank you. I'll sit in my den.
Look, I went to a whole bunch of World Series games from 1969 through 1978. I went to all the postseason games at Shea. I went to all the postseason games at Yankee Stadium in the 70s. I went to World Series games in Baltimore and World Series games in Cincinnati. I never spent more than $15 for a ticket.
Well,
I know, and I stopped going when they stopped the mail order, and they wanted to wait in line for 3 hours, and got up there at 7 o'clock in the morning, to wait in line for 3 hours to get tickets. I stopped. That's why I stopped. And
I read that the Yankees had dropped their ticket prices to near zero for that last game because they were so they couldn't arouse the fan interest. After the 3-0 lead that the Astros had put on the boards, so you could get in there for a couple of bucks.
Yeah, well, even if I had all my physical abilities I had, 10 years ago, I have no interest in going to ball games anymore. I went to tons of them, when I was younger.
Well, we all did.
So did we all,
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Time
saying.
marches on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and of course, somebody pointed out that they're starting the World Series on Friday, and they can compete with the NFL and college football over the weekend. And instead of doing it like Wednesday and Thursday, when there's very little to competition, because all you have is basketball and hockey and the Thursday night pro football game. Everything MLB does is they screw up. Everything.
That makes no sense, does it? Doesn't it?
No.
Isn't it sensible to go against the lesser competition?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
But so why do they do that?
Because they're stupid.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I will agree with Alan on this level. When you took the All-Star Game and the World Series away from budding fans, the kids, and you stopped them from accumulating memories of big games, of this, that, and the other thing, you're killing the future. What's
they've already lost a generation. There's no question in my mind they've lost one generation already.
Oh, absolutely.
How many kids buy baseball cards anymore like we used to? Probably the only cards that they buy are your Judge and Ohtani and others that they consider investments.
Right.
But we used to know everybody because we used to get all these stiffs on baseball cards because there were only 16 teams. And you, every time you buy a pack, you get some stiff every pack you bought. And you knew all of them. And, it was easier when it was 16 teams. Somebody asked me why I know that era much better than I do now. I said, because there were only 16 teams, you knew everybody, and life wasn't interfering. The pitcher
I agree with you. Is there a way to keep it 16 teams if you have different levels of major leagues? In other words,
no.
You have to play yourself in. If you're a crappy team, you have to get better before you can come up to the big.
They don't have any. You're talking relegation like they have in English soccer.
I think that's great.
Yes,
you can't do that in baseball because there's nothing to bring up.
Well, you have a lot more teams in the British soccer leagues because you have 4 divisions, and it goes all the way down. And teams can rise from one division to the next above them. And that creates a lot of fan interest, too, because you don't want your team to be sent down, so to speak, to a lower division. So it does create a lot of interest. And there seems to be a lot more home interest in some of these clubs that are localized. But we don't have that in the States. We have 4 or 6 teams that are considered national. And you can't build a fan base by playing the games at 8 o'clock at night every day in a week and sending the kids to bed because they have school the next day, which Hal was intimating. I mean, it's impossible. I remember most of us would remember rushing home from school after the game, when the game was still on, to catch the last 2 innings on TV. And in some cases, we were allowed to listen to the game. I'm talking about the World Series now, on the radio in school.
Yeah.
And then rush home right after the game, while the game was still in progress, to catch the last couple of innings. You know, I saw Lawson pitch that last couple of innings in the perfect game, simply because
Me
I rushed
too.
home from school.
Me too. And I established with my mother an intimacy in baseball that day. She said, "You think that's great?" As we watched Yogi jump into Don Lawson's arms. She says, "If you think that's great, in 1939, I was 19," she says, and Pop, my grandfather, got me tickets to living in Mount Kisco. I don't know how they got the tickets, but I don't remember how. But she saw Lou Gehrig's speech in 1939. And she said, "I'll always remember that, and I'll always be a Yankee fan for that." So that's that.
Look, I was in Forbes Field when Mazeroski hit the home run in 1960.
Listen. I have to interject here because we're going back down to memory lane anyway. But the other day, while I was sitting home waiting to go into the tutoring organization, I was sort of scanning the channels, and there's a zillion channels. Unfortunately, most of them are not one I'm interested in. I could not get any of the Yankee games. But the point was, there was one channel that was showing old baseball movies. You know, the ones that we've all watched a couple of times. But there was one there, a silent film made in 1920 called Headin' Home.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah. Good.
And it's just an incredible film for the historical value. It's supposedly about Babe Ruth's autobiography, but of course it had nothing to do with that. But it does show Babe Ruth playing a couple of games in the Polo Grounds because Yankee Stadium hadn't been built yet. And he's a very young guy. Of course, you don't hear his voice because it's a silent movie. But there's so many interesting facets to this movie. The fact that, I mean, he was a star and all, but he wasn't the great star that he became with the Yankees. And I think 20 was about his first year with the Yankees, or 19. And the movie is really quite interesting from a historical perspective. And I urge you, if you haven't seen it, try to pick it up on one of these channels.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah.
The thing about baseball, and I love the game. I've always loved the game, although I love it a little less now because of the changes and everything. But the thing about baseball, you had Babe Ruth right after the Black Sox scandal, and he really saved the game. He was a larger-than-life figure. Now, we have stars today in baseball, and we've had stars for many years. None of them, in my mind, measured up to Babe Ruth in terms of his star power and how he was a national hero.
Yeah.
In those days, in the 20s and 30s, he was a national hero. And I mean, nobody, in my mind, I've seen a lot of baseball players. Nobody played the game better than Willie Mays. But Willie Mays was not a national hero. Willie Mays was a great baseball player, but Babe Ruth just superseded that. He was more than a baseball player. He was an icon. Mays was never an icon.
I've always said that the two most important players.
That this film is so interesting because it was aired in 1920, long before he hit all of the 60 home runs in 27, and he was just starting out with his Yankee career, and yet he was already a star coming down from the Red Sox. And no other baseball player in the 1920s would ever have starred in a film about himself.
Well, I always put down. I'm in a Facebook group called MLB from 1901 to 1960, before the first expansion. And I always put down on the birthdays of Jackie Robinson and Babe Ruth that they were the two most important players of the 20th century.
For different reasons.
No
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
For different reasons, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, Jackie was a sociological revolution.
Yeah.
He was a great baseball player, don't get me wrong. And he was a marvelous player, but his impact was sociological.
Yeah, well, he was 28 years old when he came to the Dodgers.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And another thing that drove me crazy is when these morons, I stopped arguing with them because it was pointless. It's like arguing with Trump voters. That Shohei Ohtani was the greatest thing ever. He was better than Babe Ruth.
No, they're not saying he's better than Babe Ruth. They're saying he's among the most unusual stories in baseball.
Yeah, he's unusual, but the thing is, Babe Ruth, the last 2 years he pitched. He pitched fairly frequently with the Red Sox with dead ball years. Nobody hit 40 home runs, 30 home runs. He hit 29 in 1919, which was the major league record.
Right.
And I said, well, Shohei Ohtani plays for teams that win 72 games a year. How can he be the most valuable player in anything? This team's terrible.
Well, as I said to you on Facebook, Al, how could Ernie Banks have won two most valuable players?
Ernie Banks' teams are better than the teams that Ohtani is on. Has played
not much.
At Trout.
Not.
There are players out there that I don't know if you may disagree with me. There are players that are out there comfortable in playing for teams going nowhere because there's no pressure.
That's true. As witnessed by some players do well in New York, some players don't. Give me an example besides Ed Whitson of someone who just bombed in New York.
Joey Gallo.
Gallo,
right.
The pitcher they got rid of, who actually wound up, I think, doing pretty well with the Twins. Just recent, a couple of years ago. He was heralded as coming in. He's going to be a great pitcher.
Carl Pavano.
What? No, not Carl Pavano. No, just a couple of years ago. His name slips my mind, but he was heralded.
They got him from the A's. They got the guy from the A's, and he pitched for the Yankees for a couple of years. Then he went to the Reds, and he became a winner. He was a winner with the Reds. I know who you mean.
Gray.
Sonny Gray, that's right.
Yeah.
Sonny Gray.
Yep. Couldn't pitch in the stadium.
Sonny is his real first name, believe it or not.
All right.
And
you can look that up on Baseball Reference.
what really surprised me about Sonny Gray not making it is that he had playoff experience before coming to the Yankees. He was very successful with the A's, and just New York gets you.
No, not only that, but you're pitching in Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium, before they knocked it down and built a new one, Yankee Stadium was a historic site. That the old stadium was, there were ghosts in the Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that pressure weighed heavily on Whitson and on Sonny Gray and on other players as well. Some players just shirk it off and don't pay any attention to it. Some players are aware of the history of the game and aware of the history of that ballpark, and it affects them. That's what I think.
How about Roger Maris with Babe Ruth's ghost lingering?
Yeah, you're right.
Well, that was helped by Fort Frick. Fort Frick was the commissioner who put the asterisk up there because it was a ghostwriter for Babe Ruth.
But there was no asterisk. Never did it appear with an asterisk.
No,
it appeared on two lines in the record book.
Yeah.
162 game season, Roger Maris. 154 game season, Babe Ruth.
And then the next year, Maury Wills broke Ty Cobb's single season stolen base record with the help of the extra games, and nothing was made of that.
Right.
You know where that record, where the asterisk appeared, was in the almanacs. Remember the Herald Tribune almanacs? And,
sure, yeah.
Well, Wayne Unger informs me that when the almanac came out right after the season, the 62 almanac, it appeared as an asterisk.
Well, you brought up the asterisk, don't you? It was a press conference, and Dick Young, the great Dick Young, asked Ford Frick, will there be an asterisk? That's where it first came up. It was out of Dick Young's brain, really. And as I said, in the official record book, there is no, and there never has been, an asterisk next to Maris's name or Ruth's name. Now, of course, what would you put next to Barry Bonds' name? A needle you'd probably put, right?
Yeah, the thing is, I always put down the old stadium was a shrine. The new one is just another ballpark. Somebody says it's a baseball field surrounded by a shopping mall.
Yeah, it's like a museum, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said that. My cousin had coined that to me when we were going there for Old Timers Day. He said, "Yeah, it's a ball field surrounded by a shopping mall."
Well, again, that goes back to what Alan said in the beginning of our conversation. They're looking for the all-American dollar. They want you to bring your wallet, and they want you to empty it at the ball game. That's what they want.
That's right.
$3,000 seats to stand?
I asked a close friend of mine who's in Philly. I called him up Sunday, congratulate him on the Phillies winning the pennant. I asked him if he was going to go to the World Series, and this guy can afford it. He says, I want to pay $1,000 to sit in rain, possibly rain and cold. He says, you're nuts.
Yeah,
but there are people who will.
There are people who will.
Yeah. Sure.
Corporate people, but the kids won't be included. The families won't be included. Johnny Lunchbucket with 2 kids and a mortgage, and it's not going to spend $1,000 for a ticket. And for the
but
kids,
the price of tickets in just regular season games is very high. Not necessarily in baseball, but if you want to go, say, to a Ranger hockey game here in New York, you're going to drop a good $150 for a decent seat. And if you have 2 kids and a wife, you're looking at how much? You're looking at $600 before you bought your first Coke or your first hot dog. Well, that's a lot of money, and then you have to.
And that's with a Geo Pass.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And parking. You know what they were charging for parking at Yankee Stadium on the days when they were rained out?
$55. Yeah.
Yeah, $50. Well, to me, $50 is a nice piece of change to park my car.
And they screwed all the people who couldn't, who sat through that 2.5-hour rain delay before they postponed the game against Cleveland, and all the people who couldn't make it because they scheduled it like 4 o'clock the next day. People would work, kids had to go to school, and the baseball didn't care. They wouldn't give them a dime refund.
You know,
and that's almost intentional. Baseball has had many rain delays without it ever having rain.
It was $40 a game for an ordinary game, $40 at Nationals Park, as opposed to $50 a game at Yankee Stadium. So while a lot of money for a ticket for a playoff game, $40 for an ordinary, Saturday, Sunday game at Nats Park makes that $50 seem almost reasonable.
It's outrageous. $40 is outrageous, and so is $50.
Yeah,
it's outrageous.
As long as people keep paying it, they don't care.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Whatever the traffic will bear, right?
Yeah, this friend of mine who went to Yankee Stadium lives on Long Island. He would drive there and get there like 5 hours before the game so he could park on the street.
Wow.
Yeah.
That takes a lot out of the day's enjoyment.
Oh, yeah.
If you have to put up with that.
Ticket prices and stuff. I can recall that in the late 50s and into the 60s, Yankee Stadium was considered the place where you took your business partners or your new prospective clients. It was the business baseball game. The Giants, that's where the ordinary Joe Schmo went to see a baseball game. And so tickets were a little higher at Yankee Stadium, but it's already off business expenses. It's no longer that way anywhere. I don't think you'd have a boss in America who I'll give you your money back on a $300 ticket for a Tuesday night game at the stadium.
Yeah, well, when I was at Pitt from 1960 to 1964, I went to 1 million games in Forbes Field. The left field bleachers were $1, and if me and my friends got ambitious, we'd sit in the grandstand for $3.
Sure. I remember going to Memorial Stadium for $2.50 and sitting in the lower decks, off behind left field, but close to the third base line. Close to third base. $2.50. And
$1.25 at the Polo Grounds, buddy.
Yeah.
When I first went there, $1.25 for a grandstand seat.
Well, the upper deck at Shea was $1.30 for years.
Yeah. And they'd sell you a scorecard for 10 cents.
Yeah.
And a pencil for a nickel.
That's right.
So
those days are gone forever. You can forget about them. You'll never see that again.
No.
Yes.
Well, going to the Polo Grounds, if you went by the IRT subway, you had that crazy system where you had to go down one station past Yankee Stadium and transfer to a train that only went around and over the Harlem River to the Polo Grounds. I mean, it didn't go anywhere else. It just was like this little shuttle, And it was
I asked this friend of mine what they charge at Yankee Stadium for a bottle of water. $5.25.
But it's good water.
Yeah, but it's good
it's water. Almost comical. It's almost comical.
It's like being in a legitimate theater where they have you when if you try to get in and sneak food in or anything like that, if they catch you, they'll confiscate. Another nice thing they've also done is there's no ticket stubs anymore.
Yeah, I wondered about
that.
Do they have ticket booths? I haven't been to a baseball game in many years.
No, my friend told me there's no advance tickets.
But what if I want to go? What if I decide tomorrow, a day in June, it's a nice day, and I want to go to a baseball game?
It's very hard to do that.
No, I no. Look, it was not. It was when the Nationals, because this is my latest experience. I lived there for a number of years when they came in. You could go down. There's a will call window. There's an advance ticket. There's also game day tickets. It was never a problem getting tickets right there, then and there for the game. So
my friend told me everything with the Yankees is electronic. So if you go to a game, he was at the game where Judge hit 58 and 59. He would like to have a ticket stub. I have a collection of ticket stubs from most of the games I went to in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and early 2000s. But they don't have it anymore. Everything's electronic.
So you got to have a smartphone.
No, yeah.
All right, a smartphone.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
You show your ticket on the phone.
That's right. Yeah.
But so we are in an age where that's convenient for a bunch of folks.
So I can't walk up to Yankee Stadium and get a ticket.
No, as far as I'll check with him and I'll let you know. But as far as I know, no, you can't do that anymore.
Because what is it? What's that ticket scalping outfit that's always charging an extra fee?
StubHub.
StubHub.
Yeah.
You can't just buy a ticket. You have to buy a ticket plus.
Yeah.
For my convenience, I have to spend extra money to get this ticket that I can't get anywhere else.
Well, now with your Nats, the way they played this year, if you show up with a bat and a set of spikes, they'll let you play 3 innings.
No, I was talking about going up to 2019 when they won the World Series.
Yeah.
You could still buy tickets at the window.
Yeah, but they were so terrible this year. It's amazing how they declined so rapidly.
Well, they sold off all their players, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
They wasted how much money they waste on Steven Strasburg?
Yeah. They always injured Steven Strasburg.
And Zimmerman. Those guys were going to set the world on fire.
It was a steady, good ball player.
But he got old.
And they're worse than the Pirates, who I root for. It's funny because at the beginning of the Pirate group, people were saying 75 wins, whatever. I said if they don't lose 100, it'll be a productive season. They wound up losing exactly 100.
You know, the other part of the problem for me, I can't tell the players apart. There are so many Latin American players now in the game. Everybody's named Rodriguez or Cruz, and I can't tell them apart.
They have different numbers.
You know what we're missing in life? A who's who in baseball.
Now, when Judge hit the 60th home run, or 61st, he hit it to some guy in Toronto who I never heard of. So I go into the box score in the ESPN app. I click on this guy's name. He's been in the league for 4 or 5 years. I never heard of him. You can't keep up with this.
It's impossible.
There's
impossible.
Too many teams. I don't even try anymore.
Too many teams and too many players. That's part of the problem.
And they all move around so much.
Of course. So that's the way it goes. That's our game.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Before we wrap it up, I want to go around the horn and you guys tell me what you think of the recent rule changes. Start with you, Hal.
I wish they would leave the game alone. It was the greatest game in the world for 100 years, more, and they monkey with it now, and they monkey with it every year. And I said before, somebody's going to steal 150 bases this year because you're not going to be able to hold runners on first base. You'll throw over twice, and the third time he's going to be on his way. So I hate the rule changes. I hate them. The ghost runner on second base. What a weird idea that was. I mean, they've just bastardized the game, and that angers me. I'm a traditionalist. I like the game the way it was. I wish they had left it alone.
Okay, well said. Hal, that was succinct. David Hubler, what do you think of the rule changes? Are there any good ones?
No,
how about
there
that?
are no, that if there was one saving grace, there isn't. I mean, they keep talking about measuring the time between pitches, but this nonsense about making the bases bigger and the excuses that it'll protect runners and first basemen from being spiked is nonsense. It doesn't happen at all. What they're trying to do is inject a little more speed, phony speed, into the game because you'll be a step or so closer to second on trying to steal. That's the only reason that they put this. If they would just be honest about some of these damn things they're doing, they're not. They're making up stories about. They're totally devoid of any reality. I mean, they talk about the games being so long. We don't want to talk about the games being so long. Cut out the commercial time.
Oh, God, yeah, right.
I mean, cut it down. You're making enough money. Cut it down. The next thing, because it's creeping in already. The next thing are going to be like soccer jerseys with advertising all over the logo.
Next season, they're having advertisements next season.
Right.
On the
jersey. They had advertisements this year. The Nike swoosh has been all over.
That's right.
It's creeping in.
They'll be walking billboards like tennis players and golfers.
Yeah. Or race car drivers. David, anything that you see as a positive rule change? Anything that they're doing?
No, I'm afraid I'm not. I would like to see a mandatory number of weekend day games by all major league teams. That would be a one way to get more kids into the ballparks because we know, all of us agree, that the fan base. I mean, but they should have a mandatory number of Saturday, Sunday home day games. What's so difficult about that?
Well, Sunday they do it because they want to get all the games out of the way before ESPN comes on with their Sunday night game.
Yeah. Okay. Alan, anything positive?
Yeah, the one positive which I think everybody's overlooked is the ending of the shift.
Yes, that I like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's the way it is. It's crazy. It's reduced the game to home runs, walks, and strikeouts. That's it.
You know what else I like? I am, as I said, a traditionalist, and I never liked the idea of a designated hitter. But if you're going to have a designated hitter in one league, you got to have it in the other league. Otherwise, you have the World Series played with two sets of rules.
They're in both leagues now.
Years.
They're in both leagues now. It's in both leagues now.
I'm saying that change, universal DH, that's fine with me. Do it the same way for both leagues. That was good. Even though I hate the DH, but that's another matter entirely.
Yeah, I have a friend that
how many
hates it. He was an expert on hitting pitchers, and the DH ruined him. But that's it. Some of these pitchers, they take so long to throw between pitches that you could eat a 3-course dinner between some of them.
I remember sitting in the press box at Yankee Stadium and watching. I guess it was Hernandez, the refugee from Cuba.
Oh, Endo Hernandez, yeah.
He would walk around, and we would shout at them, throw the ball,
yeah.
take a chance, take a chance, see what happens.
Well, I was watching this Lance McCullers pitch for Houston, not against the Yankees, but one of the games against Seattle. I think it was the game that wound up going 18 innings. And you could literally, I'm yelling at the TV set, throw the goddamn ball already. I mean, and then of course, he holds onto the ball, the hitter steps out, and it just goes on forever. So anything that could speed up this this thing, I'm in favor of pitch clocks.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what's really weird. I'm rooting for the Houston Astros, not because I love Texas, not because I haven't. I've been rooting against them since 1962, but for one reason. Dusty Baker. I would really like to see him punch his ticket to Cooperstown by winning a World Series.
Well, because they'll get him out of the class with Gene Mark.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, excellent point.
So, if we have to end the podcast on that note, so be it, because this was and is a tremendous guy for baseball on every level.
Yeah.
And
I was very sorry when the Nats let him go. That was a terrible move. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Okay, guys. As usual, I so much enjoy your company, and may this go on for another 10, 15 years, as long as we can. Thank you, David Hubler, Hal Bock, Alan Blumkin. Next time we'll have George with us. Again, he was indisposed. Hope his health is good. And hope all of our health remains that way. Sei gesund, guys.
Yeah, Ralph, when will this be posted?
Tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Wait, didn't Sei gesund play second base one time for the White Sox?
He did. I believe he did.
Yeah, I know. I remember. Good field. No,
there will be guys in the South listening to this going, Sei gesund. What the hell are they talking about? All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, guys. It was terrific, and one of my favorite moments of the month. So thank you. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. 3 out of the 4. What do we call each other? The Fab 5, the Fab 4. So 3 out of the 4 are with us. Blessed for that. Thank you for listening. Adios and happy trails.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.